Welcome to the Inspiration North podcast, inspiring stories from inspirational people and how they found their passion, their true north. I'm James Eves.
And I'm Michelle Minikin, and this is the Inspiration North podcast.
Today's episode, if you've got a body, you can do yoga, with Stacey and Angela, aka the Yoga Hens. We talk about how their idea of success is helping people while staying well themselves, why they're making yoga inclusive, holistic and accessible, and how we're supposed to rest and retreat, but it doesn't seem to be on anyone's agenda.
Yoga Hens combines nursing skills with yoga, mindfulness and therapeutic coaching to deliver unique holistic wellbeing support with a particular emphasis on bolstering mental health, reducing stress and developing resilience for the modern world. Yoga Hens' ethos is inclusion for all bodies, and founders Stacey and Angela have already created a storm within the local community with their Real Yoga for Real Bodies sessions. The nursing duo aims to break down the barriers to yoga whilst changing perspectives on what it means to be well and to encourage us to reconnect as a community in order to stay well. The wellbeing consultancy business, which runs yoga and mindfulness wellbeing sessions from its studio in West Allotment, also offers a range of retreats and workshops nationally and internationally, as well as wellbeing support for business. Stacey and Angela discovered the magic of yoga when they encountered their own personal health difficulties and found that it greatly supported them in their journey to recovery. So they decided to train as yoga instructors so they could pass on the yoga magic to others. Their passion is in supporting others with their key goal to make nurse-led evidence-based wellbeing support available to everyone.
We are in the hideout with the Yoga Hens, not a studio, the hideout, and with Angela and Stacey. And we're all sat. It's our first experience of sitting in the easy position, I'm told it's called.
Easy pose, yeah.
Easy pose, that's the one. Which we'll see how I feel when I get up in an hour's time.
It's okay, we've got a hoist. No, not really.
But nice and cozy. Thanks for joining us. So we were going to start, weren't we, with about how you actually met. Where does that journey start?
A long, long time ago.
Stacey and I met at Northumbria University many moons ago, and we both met at the start of our 3-year nursing degrees. We were both training to be learning disability nurses in the Northeast. And Stacey, how do you remember me when we first met?
I remember Angela as Angela Malteser and tuna sandwich because before we actually interacted that much, that is what she used to buy for lunch every day in the canteen. And
did the Maltesers go in the tuna sandwich, or were they separate?
I don't think so. But
that is an awesome idea,
and is a possibility in Angela's world.
I am a creature of habit. However, apart from the tuna sandwich and Maltesers, Stacey and I, apart from our joint interest in learning disability nursing, starting the new chapter in our lives together, we both had children of a very similar age. So that was kind of a bit of a connection outside of university. And we started socialising, I guess, based on that with the children. We had babies, really.
Yeah, they were 6 months old and we went on play dates, I think. And the kids, they're like kindred spirits, aren't they?
Yeah.
So they got on really well. And it just kind of evolved from there. And now we're some kind of strange family unit where the husbands are best mates. We kind of, spend a lot of time together, as people know. And the kids are still very much intertwined, aren't they?
Very much so. So I guess in terms of where we met, that was a bit of a pinnacle moment for Stacey and I. And like Stacey says, everything just began there.
Did you always want to be nurses, or was that something that changed as you grew up? Or
no, I wanted to be a jockey. I did. I wanted to be a jockey.
Discs or horses?
No, horses. And I've always been a horse rider. Maybe I could do both. But yeah, I wanted to be a jockey. And although I'm quite short, I was never really small enough to be a jockey, and that evolved into various other things like a hairdresser. Then I wanted to be a vet. I wanted to do kind of equine studies. Then I wanted to be an artist, maybe an author, and I just kind of went on to all these different things that I really enjoyed and thought, that's how I want to make a career out of something I really enjoy. And what happened was that I went on down the academic route. I ended up doing what, you know, your parents expect you to do and things. So went to university and got various jobs, worked in marketing, worked in media. Wasn't really my cup of tea. So alongside of that, I used to volunteer with people with learning disabilities. And I used to do that every week. And then eventually kind of thought, actually, that's the direction that I want to go in. I've always really liked to help people. So that was quite powerful for me. And somehow the universe provides, as we like to say. And that's where I ended up going. So and there was just it was my third degree is the nursing one, but there just happened to be a space on the course when I had this crazy idea that I was going to do it. So I went and it happened, and that's how I got there. But Angela's had quite an interest in kind of healthcare prior to that, haven't you?
For me, when I was very young, I wanted to be a hairdresser, but also an air hostess. So I decided to combine the two and be a hair hostess. And my awesome business idea was to cut people's hair on the plane for the people who had forgotten or didn't have time to get the haircut.
Great idea.
Sadly, that never took off.
And quite literally.
Oh yeah, literally. And but I did go down a hairdressing route initially, and from that, really began with healthcare, wellbeing, worked in various care homes for the elderly, that kind of thing. Always really wanted to be a nurse. Similar to Stacey, always wanted to give something back, always wanted to help people. Saw that very much as my role in life. Worked with lots of different people with different disabilities. I worked in hospitals as a healthcare assistant, and was always encouraged to go and do my nurse training at university. However, did not have the belief that I was intellectually able to go and do a university course. And that fundamentally was what stopped me for years and years and years, until I reached the age of 30. And I thought, if I don't do it now, if I don't apply, I really did not think I was going to get in. If I don't apply, I'll never know. And I could be sitting in my 90s and always wonder, what if? So I took a bit of a chance and applied and somehow got in, which kind of, threw me a little bit. And the rest was the beginning of that next chapter in my life for me.
Okay. So it's quite unusual to go to university when you've got 6-month-old babies. You know, it's
a little bit crazy.
Yeah. And the fact that you found somebody else that was doing the same thing, it's almost like, whoa.
Yeah, it was when I look back on that now, well, probably was lots of things in my life. I think, oh, I couldn't do that now, or how did I do that? But you just do, and it's, you know, and that happens with lots of things where I've just I've done them and I couldn't repeat them, but somehow it worked at the time. So, we were juggling a lot at the time, but it almost was as if that was what was expected of you. And I think as well, I mean, it was your second child and was my first. And I think there's always this expectation, especially when you've had a career beforehand, that you just do it. You just juggle it, don't you? You just juggle family life. You just juggle the career. You're still doing the next qualification and you're still progressing. And even if you feel completely overwhelmed, well, that's okay, because that must mean that you are doing your best.
It's a culture of busy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, how are you doing? Oh, I'm very busy. So,
yeah.
Well done. Busy doing what? Yeah. Okay, so degree, then what happened after that?
Well, we kind of went our separate ways in career, in terms of we worked for the same hospital trust, but we didn't really cross each other's paths that often in what we did. But our friendship grew a lot stronger. So we started doing a lot of things together. We went on holidays together quite a bit. The kids were always playing together and we socialised. We had Christmases together. So that friendship side grew quite a bit. But in terms of work-wise, Angela went down behavioural route. So she was working with people with learning disabilities and challenging behaviour. And Angela really developed in that area, whereas I jumped around a little bit. So I'd been on the wards for a while, working with people with autism, then went in the community, and then eventually ended up working in psychiatric liaison at A&E. So But all in all, if you want to kind of summarize that, my focus was in mental health and autism and making those services accessible to people with autism. So they were a little bit different, but we had some key clients, didn't we, where we used to enjoy kind of chatting to each other about, and our paths crossed a little bit. And then I got the opportunity to go work with Angela's team. She's laughing because although I went to work with that team, she kindly took herself off sick the day that I arrived.
Absolutely. Which was a little bit awkward considering we'd never worked together before. So pretty much the day Stacey was starting the team, it was a Thursday morning, and my alarm had gone off and I snoozed it, as I often would. And the next thing I knew, I was being woken up, paramedics in the house, and I'd had a tonic-clonic seizure for the first time in my life, and got blue lighted to A&E. Stacey made a mad dash, bless her, to the hospital for my first day on the team, and that was pretty much it. I was discharged. I was a little bit woozy and not quite with it. Didn't really know what had happened.
Well, hold up a little bit.
Okay.
And I was very, very unwell in A&E. She was very distorted. Didn't know what was going on at all. Was talking a load of gaga. She can't remember a lot of it. And said she was going to work. That's what she said. That was the most important thing. I was like, Angela, really don't think you're going to go to work. You need to kind of go home and see what the consultant says, etc., etc. And she was like, no, I'm going to work, Stacey. I'll be going to work. Can you ring them up and tell them I'm coming in? Well, yeah.
And that was my full intention. You did not be off work for pretty much any reason. My career and my life, I say it with some regret now, but very much centred not around my family but around my career, my role. And I think there was a bit pressure from society that was what was expected. You'd be a mum, you'd be a wife, you'd be a daughter, a sister, and you have your full-time career, and that is the norm, and you just get on with it. So yeah, that was very much my intention, to go back to work on the Monday. However, I never returned to my role as a nurse within the NHS.
Could have, though. You
I
could have. Yeah, it's important to say that.
Yeah,
it was
I could
a decision, and wasn't it?
Over several months, lots of consultants, and I then had a series of additional tonic-clonic seizures, at which point I was diagnosed with epilepsy and medicated. On that Thursday morning, my life changed in an instant. I no longer could drive.
About the huge thing in your head.
What thing?
The huge thing that they're seeing on the scan that they give you as a diagnosis first. You know, the bit that...
The tumour?
Yeah, it's that thing.
Oh. Yeah, I was scanned and they did find a lesion on my brain that they weren't quite sure if it was a tumour or not.
So they just thought that it was a brain tumour.
Yeah.
So Angela decided, didn't you?
To plan my own funeral.
I'm going to die. She says, I'm better dying than just going with this unknown stuff. So she decided she was going to plan her funeral.
Because that's what I do. I plan. I'm an organiser and I like to be in control of my own life. I quite a lot, like a lot of people, I don't like not knowing what's coming next. So this is a possible tumour, but we're not entirely sure. So we are going to say it's a tumour, but we don't know what's going to happen. So I planned my own funeral in detail and hit a brick wall of deep depression. To the point some days I would not get out of bed. However, my trusty friend Stacey, my fellow yoga hen, would ring me and say, get your clothes on, I'm coming to get you, we're going for a dog walk. And I would say, I'm not well enough, I'm not coming today. And Stacey pretty much would say, if you're not dressed and downstairs when I arrive, I will come up to your bedroom and I will physically get you dressed. So I think, oh my God, I can't really do that. So I used to throw some clothes on, no makeup, no hair done, and wait downstairs, and we would go for dog walks together to the beach, sometimes not talking.
Yeah, just fast forward on where I was at that point. The reason I was able to do that, coincidentally, I ended up off sick too, not long after Angela. And I think what Angela sometimes leaves out is that although that tonic-clonic was a huge hit for her, there was loads of stuff prior that signals that she was getting from her body that things weren't really right, whereas the tonic-clonic, the brain tumour, that was kind of enough for Angela to say, okay, maybe I'll slow down now. So in a similar way, I had a stressful job. It's really stressful. NHS is a wonderful, wonderful vehicle for all of us. However, there are restrictions on staff who really want to do the best that they can, and it's quite emotive, especially working with the extreme cases as you do in terms of A&E and in terms of hospital admissions. And you want to do so much, but you also have all of this paperwork to do as well. So I used to find myself doing my job and taking the paperwork home. So I would kind of be working kind of 16, 18 hour days. So I would go do the school run, and then I would come back and be on my laptop again doing all this stuff. And it was really stressful. And I went on this roller coaster for a couple of years. And then I hit a bit of a brick wall, and I've always suffered from kind of migraines, but they were horrendous. And I was in bed for days, and I was always taking medication. Then I was going from kind of being sedated by the medication to having another migraine. And I was quite unwell physically, and self-medicating with booking another holiday, or, you know, getting the wine out, or getting the chocolate out, whatever it was. And I hit a brick wall where I ended up going to see the GP about being so low in mood as well. So I got signed off sick, ended up being off sick at the same time as Angela, and I guess that motivated me to get out the house, to get her out of the house. So we used to go for these dog walks, but we didn't speak to each other. So we might just be walking along the beach and end up in Tynemouth or something for a coffee, and we didn't really speak because Angela didn't want to speak about stuff. You were quite closed, weren't you?
Very much.
And I think we just enjoyed being. It was just helpful to be with each other. And then that became a bit of a habit, and we started to help each other, and we started to talk. And then through that, we layered on other things. So although yoga's always been a part of my life on and off during the years, I found us some regular classes that we could really layer up in our week instead of just doing nothing. And I dragged Angela along reluctantly.
Very reluctantly. As Stacey said, we would kind of do things for each other more than we would for ourselves. So I didn't really want to let Stacey down. So Stacey would come up with what I call now bizarre and wacky ideas and would go along with them. But actually that was a saviour for us both, wasn't it?
Yeah. And we just done more and more yoga, and healed our minds, I think, quite a bit. And the physical benefits were just kind of what, you know, a byproduct of that. That wasn't the important thing. It was just about kind of reconnecting with the mind a little bit. So that is what we done for a long, long time. In between, you know, going back to work, trying bits out, having meetings with people at work, all sorts of stuff, going to the GP, various things, and then other stuff in your life with the kids and all the rest of it. And it just grew a little bit from there, and we started chatting about, well, what are we going to do? You know, where are we going to go from here? Because I think we knew at that point, there was the acceptance that we couldn't go back to doing what we were doing. Angela had already cut her hours before she had that big seizure, and that it took her a long time just to cut 1 day a week, I think you did.
Yeah.
And I'd cut my hours slightly as well. So obviously you know that this stress is piling up. So we've made these adjustments, and there wasn't really any other adjustments that we could make. Angela's future was still quite uncertain in terms of her diagnosis. And she was still on a little bit of a downward spiral. I don't even know how I found it, but I just thought, well, let's look into this yoga stuff some more. Let's just kind of study it. Yeah, and that's what I do. As you can tell from my qualifications, I study things. And that's what I've always felt that I had to do, the next qualification. It's just kind of the way I was brought up, I guess. And that was validation. But the degrees I done never really give us massive butterflies. It was more about kind of the connections with people, and that's what I loved about the nursing, you know, being with people and stuff. So anyways, I found this yoga teacher training online, and I says, what do you think of this? Let's, you know, we go here, we go to Spain, and we go to London every weekend, and we do this training, and we'll just learn more about the philosophy of yoga, and it'll give us something to do.
That was pretty much it. It'll give us something to do.
Yeah.
And you being an academic, and myself not having any belief in myself in terms of academia, Stacey encouraged me and kind of gave me the confidence to go for it. And then off we went.
The thing with Angela is, if you catch her in the right moment, and I'll go, do you fancy doing this? And if she'll go, yeah, let's do it. And then I go, okay, book it quick.
Yeah.
So that's basically what we did. We booked it, probably a little bit out of our depth, to be honest. But the lady we trained with really had a great open mind. We told her about our background. Her mother was a nurse, so she was quite interested in that. And we picked a yoga school quite specifically because no disrespect to any form of yoga, but there's loads of yoga out there, loads of different types of yoga. It's a bit like religion. It's evolved in different parts of the world and, over the years. So you have to be quite specific on what you want to do. And this lady, Sally Parks, she'll not mind us saying, she helped us with that. And because her ethos was very much a bit like our nursing ethos, about making yoga inclusive, about being holistic in that approach, and not focusing specifically on kind of body types and things and forcing yourselves into these contorted poses. And the form of yoga that she was really interested in was hatha, and that's why we decided to go with her. And as I say, always, and it's crazy, the universe does provide. She just popped up, and it happened to be right. We happened to be able to make it. We happened to be able to get the flights to Spain, and that was that, wasn't it, really? And we just did it.
And it was terrifying at the time for where we were both at, mentally and certainly physically for me. And in terms of my expectations and beliefs of somebody who practices yoga, I'm not very skinny. I can't get my ankles around my head. and that was my stereotypical thoughts of yoga. I thought and believed that's what yoga was. So during my own experience of being introduced to yoga, I began to quickly realise this isn't just about my body, this is about my mind as well, and connecting the two. And actually, if you've got a body, you can kind of do yoga. No, I wasn't the most flexible on the course, but it's about having a journey for yourself and living that journey without competition, without the expectations. And it's about you and yourself. And that was quite a shift in my mind for me to be able to embrace that, and a shift in what I'd previously believed to be true. So that was huge for me. And once I started with that belief, and Stacey and I would sit for hours and chat about all different things, we began to realise that we as women were nurses. It wasn't our career or our job title that made us a nurse, that we as women were nurses. And how much benefit in our experience from prior to doing our nurse training, we had so much of a different skill set that we could take forward, and still be able to give, still be able to share, but just use some different tools in terms of helping people's well-being, bringing people together, bringing the community together.
And in terms of mindfulness and meditation, we already done those sorts of things anyway. As a nurse, you would teach people mindfulness to manage their mental health. You would do that in your therapeutic sessions, so those sorts of things were already kind of there. And as Angela says, the poses in yoga, which not many people realise, are 10% of what yoga is. 10%. And in fact, when yoga first began all those millions of years ago, there was no poses. There was one pose. You sat and you meditated, and the poses were brought in to expel the energy, to move the body, and to work in other ways so that you could be better at meditating, essentially. So we tried to break down that barrier. And I suppose the bit that we missed out is that we used to also, as nurses, go and present at conferences to break down barriers for people with learning disabilities, people with mental health issues. So we are quite passionate about accessibility. So when it came to the yoga, and we clicked with the holistic elements of yoga and said, actually, this is quite similar to nursing. The ethos behind this is quite similar to what we preach. But what we realised was people, and even when we said we did yoga, they were like, "Oh, yoga, that's a bit odd, isn't it?" Or really, you bend your head backwards, and then you go into a crab and all of this sort of stuff. And we were like, no, it's not just about that.
It's not just downward facing dog.
Yeah. And what we wanted to do was communicate that to people, and we wanted to make it accessible as a well-being tool. And although it's out there, I think even ourselves, when we try different studios, there is still sometimes a barrier to going in, or to just feeling not good enough or not worthy, or not being able to take your form of a pose because you're frightened you don't look like the next person next to you. So it was that we hung on to, and we are really, really passionate about inclusion. And I think that was kind of, if it's the thread that links everything together, really. And the reason behind doing what we do is to include everybody. So we never had a specific audience. It was that we wanted everyone to be able to access this in some way to benefit their health. And I think it had benefited us so much in our darkest times. Yeah. We wanted to shout from the rooftops about this. It's like, why isn't the NHS employing this? Why is this not here? And that was the thing. That was what we wanted to do. And we didn't really know how, did we?
We sat with a sheet of white A4 paper and a Sharpie and wrote down all of the things that we wanted to share with other people. It was full, the page was full. There was lots and lots of different directions. And we kept coming back to yoga studio as a hub. We see this very much as the hub. And then kind of Yoga Hens was born, wasn't it? We never intended to set up the business as it was, even knowing that we wanted to share our passion. It was never intended to, we didn't have a specific focus or a specific end point, which is difficult from a business perspective because you're expected, there's an expectation to have your business plan and 6 months, yearly, 5 years time, where do you see yourself? We didn't have that. We just knew in our hearts what we wanted to do and what we wanted to share.
We still intended on returning to the NHS. We were still off sick when we were doing this extra training and things, and just working on ourselves, essentially bringing our own health back to standard. So that wasn't really on the agenda. And then I said, okay, let's document our teacher training, and just came up with a name for Instagram to do that. And that's how it evolved. And then from there, we decided that we couldn't heal our bodies in this way and go back to what we were doing. So we both decided to leave the NHS, still with no game plan whatsoever. Thankfully with 2 supportive husbands. And we had no money to set up a studio or anything. We had no kit. And we just decided to put a little bit of our own time and effort into trying to make it work. And this belief that the universe would help us to do that. And we set up some community centre classes, didn't we?
And we set those up for free. And that was terrifying. I remember delivering the first session. Will anybody come? Even though it's for free, will anybody turn up? And people did.
It was full.
It was full, which was astounding. And then we were getting feedback. Like, people liked how we delivered sessions. People wanted to spend more time with us, which was mind-blowing. From there, we said, okay, that's a starting point. Where else can we take it? But like Stacey said, we had no financial support in that sense. Somebody kindly invested in us at the time, which enabled us to set up the studio. We had great fun driving around the northeast, buying furniture and things like that. A lot of it's secondhand.
I love how you say great fun, because Angela did not have great fun when I was going, let's go buy this that someone's got advertised on Facebook. Angela, let's just buy this. And she was going, well, where are you going to put it, Stacey? You've bought this random huge elephant. We don't have a studio. And I was like, no, we will. We'll get one. So everything in here has a story. It's secondhand, it's been donated, or we found it somewhere and gave it a new life. So I did buy quite a few things that Angela turned a blind eye to, I think, but now she's in love with.
Yes,
I think she likes them now. And we invested in a little bit of kit. I think we spent like a couple of £100 on some things we could get so that people didn't have to invest in a yoga mat. We could provide them with it. We just kind of hoped someone, maybe 1 or 2 people, would come through the door.
And that was genuinely the belief. What if nobody comes? Well, we just practice ourselves. We'll have some of our own practice. When we first started in some of our sessions, they were quiet, and we rolled with it and kept our belief. And over the last couple of years, we started expanding from the studio in terms of, when I say expanding, I don't mean from a business sense, I mean from a wider sense of delivering sessions to the community and opening up the accessibility. So we do retreats around the northeast. We've had a retreat in Spain. We've kind of spread our wings a little bit, but keep coming back to the hub, don't we?
We do, yeah. And I think the key driver of the business was never money. The key driver of our business was if we could help others while staying well, then we'd achieved. So it didn't really matter. So although we were getting the business advice of, well, you need to make a return on this, so we just went with what we felt was right. And money, we didn't have the pressure, I suppose, of having to bring in money. We just had to cover our cost, and that's what we set out to do, and still set out to do, I guess. Although it is quite nice to have a little bit more success from that. That is completely opposite to what I did in my previous life. I used to drive for the next kind of increment on my pay slip, or what could happen if I could kind of get the next qualification and go up to the next role. And it's quite bizarre because I just don't have any need to do that. We do what we love. And that's
the key.
It is the key. And I've never felt so fulfilled in all of my life. And I often look back and think maybe that's why I was jumping from kind of all these different degrees, all these different careers, because I hadn't quite followed my heart. And that's that, really.
From that perspective, I feel more of a nurse now than what I've ever done, which sounds bizarre. But I feel I can give to people. We can spend the extra time talking to people. We've built relationships with people. We don't have the budgets or the constraints that are put onto the NHS. We are almost free. I see ourselves as free, and we can give of ourselves. We do have to be careful because that can come at a cost. So we do have to protect ourselves in that way. But like Stacey said, we are both so fulfilled by sharing what we do, and just seeing, sometimes having somebody walk through the door who maybe's perspective of yoga was similar to mine, maybe not a body shape that you would expect typically to do yoga, and see people come through the door and maybe sort of not engage with eye contact, gaze low along the floor, body language be hunched, almost feeling like they shouldn't be there. And we would give out a lovely warm welcome. In the first few weeks, you could see people, you didn't really know if people were wanting to be here even. And now we have those same, really, you think, are you coming
torture?
Here? Yeah, exactly.
You've been made to come.
Yeah, exactly that. And now those same people walk through this door now and their head is held high, their posture has changed, not so much physically, but how they hold themselves, eye contact, and say that this has changed their life. This little hub at the Hideout in West Allotment has changed their life by meeting us, and that's quite overwhelming because you think, well, we've just been humans, we've just provided a space to come and be yourself without expectations. You just come and be you, and that's okay. And if you do nothing else but come and sit on the mat, that's good, that's an achievement.
And for me, that's the most successful thing that I've done in my life. It's not about the qualifications, the money I've made, the letters after your name, whatever. It is about being able to provide that safe space for people where they can come for the hour and just feel that they can be themselves or be with themselves. And to me, it's powerful. That's the thing that, really strives me forwards. And that, we'll often say, don't we, at the end of a session, that's what we do it for. And it is really, really powerful, but sad at the same time that people don't have that. And we didn't have that.
No,
we never had that when we were in our busy lives either. And part of this was created for us. Keeps us well. When we come here, we feel better. And I think it is quite sad that we've lost that sense of community. And we hope that even if we can just put a tiny piece of that back and then people can pass that on, then that can be healthy for the community. But it does sadden me a little bit. I think that it's not always accessible to be together and to just feel great about being together and having that safe space.
Well, we kind of started on our Action for Happiness thing for the same reasons, I suppose. Delivering our first course last summer, I think we got more out of it than...
Yes.
Well, apparently the feedback was awesome, but we got so much out of it as well, didn't we? It's like always chasing the busy and the dollar and or the pound, the euro, whatever. The people that were attracted there, again, it's like they didn't have that safe space just to...
Basic human needs, really. And quite simple stuff, because we often say, well, we haven't really done much, How has it been so powerful? But we seem to have kind of cancelled that stuff out as not important and put everything else at the top of the list. And it's those basic things, you know, just kind of even acknowledging someone. You know, we talk about this a lot, don't we? You know, everything, even in transactions where you go get your coffee or whatever, there isn't very much eye contact, there isn't very much nicety about it. It's all very fast paced, and we've lost that time for each other. And I think if you can give someone a little bit of your time, it's kind of valuable for them, but really valuable for you too. And I think that's maybe what our focus is a lot of the time. I like to be able to give people some time and to show them that we value them, because it's lost.
And that communication, real communication, not just through technology, phones, even some drive-throughs now, or you can pay for your petrol, you can pay for that without even speaking to anybody, but all of those interactions that have been lost, and they might be very small throughout your day, but that keeps you topped up. You can feel yourself disconnecting from everything around you.
And don't get me wrong, mind, when my mood has been really low, that I've loved the self-service checkout or the self-service pump at, you know, getting your fuel. I don't want to people today, you know, I don't want to speak to people. But in doing that, you de-skill yourself and you just go more and more inward. And really, if it wasn't for Angela, I probably would not have left the house at all in those dark days. And then I would have continued to use the self-service checkout or, you know, the faceless buying online for the delivery of the shopping. And it's kind of, where does that end? When do you then start interacting again? And when do you start connecting? It's a bit scary. I find it all a bit scary, all of this kind of evolving technology, although it is useful. And don't get me wrong, we use it for business. But I do find it a little bit overwhelming in terms of mental health, my own mental health, and then the mental health of the people around me.
I know it's the children as well who are growing up. You know, we thankfully grew up devoid of Facebook capturing. You know, our parents weren't putting pictures of us very cutely on Facebook, and you know, so they've got this online record, I suppose, of their entire existences, and then. You know, you know, we run around the streets and causing such, you know, playing on construction sites, which is really frowned upon today. And, and you know, it's almost, it's a shame that the kids aren't, you know, they're online communicating with each other, playing games in their own houses. So, yeah, it's a bit of a worry.
For children, that's all they've seen in this generation. We're fortunate, I guess, to have seen both sides of that picture. And can take, I guess, the best of both worlds, because we do remember the benefits of that, but we also have the benefits and the ease of what we can take, the positives, I guess, of social media and online shopping and fuel and things like that. But it comes at a cost. It
does. We've never been as connected and as disconnected, and I find that a shame, because even though you are online, I mean, I think about all the wonderful friends and connections I've got in different countries. I would never have written letters to all these people, so there's a positive there. But I think the joke of younger generation not being able to use a telephone and want to talk to somebody, you want to just message somebody, or it's a shame. And what you'd said before, Stacey, about connection, I think about when actually how we met. I was working from home a lot. And even though I was getting out and about and seeing people, I found that there was something missing. It was, I think, from going in busy office environments where there's always someone to talk to and chat about whatever. I always get energy from going out, meeting people, even if it's just going for a coffee or something, like you say, and having a chat with someone on the till.
Just some exchange,
That's the sort of energy which, what you said before, is when you avoid that, I find, in fact, if I've been in all weekend or something, and Michelle will say, "Oh, you need to be out and about," and that was.
Oh, it goes down a bit of a
a
spiral of no contact with humans. James, I think he needs it.
It's very true, and you know, I think what I'm a bit nerdy, and I read up on all these things, but there is a science behind that. You know, there's a lot of hormone exchange in the body when you give eye contact, when you interact with somebody, and that is needed. You can't get that from interacting via Facebook. It doesn't happen. So the body doesn't know that you're doing that, so it doesn't produce the hormones, and that's the thing that we're missing. And I think as well, it's about people being together without the competition associated with that.
Yes.
Because we bring people into this room and we literally strip them bare, you know, and we'll say it's just you and your mat. There's no competition. There's no judgment. We're not here to compete with each other. Nobody's looking at you. No one cares how loud you're breathing. It's entirely your space. And I think you just see the shoulders drop and you see everyone relax a little bit, you know, and sometimes Angela falls out of a pose. Sometimes I'll say, I'm not doing that today, but you can go a bit lower if you wish, because my hips are not feeling that pose today. And we normalize this and you can see the relief on people's faces. And I think if we could create that space outside as well, if people could be more welcoming of each other, less competitive, I'm not really sure how we do it, because all of our social worlds are geared up to compete, to layer up the statuses and things, and
show your best version all the time.
Absolutely.
Unrealistic.
Which is not a connector. We connect through adversity. We connect through the difficulties we've had and through sharing those difficulties and helping each other. And it's kind of like, where's the forum for that now? Because we don't go to the local club and do that, or we don't hang our washing out and chat to each other or do the washing together and, you know, talk about the difficulties we've had. Those forums don't seem to be there, and the forums that we do have are very much focused on, like you said, presenting your best self, whatever that may be at the minute.
And sometimes I think it comes down to, yes, you may have something really significant going on in your life, and you might share a little bit of that with someone who then goes, oh, me too, or that's happened to me before and I can relate to how you're feeling. And then that's a bit of a shoulder drop, like, oh, thank goodness, dare I say the word, I'm normal. This happens to other people. It's not just me. And because everyone has their guard up in terms of protecting themselves from judgment from other people's views of themselves. And other times it might not be a huge thing. It might be just I've had a really rough day and everything's gotten a bit much. And sometimes we chat to people here who, I'll say, I've just had one of those days where things have gone and we're like, oh, and it's almost like you can leave it at the door. Yes, it's still there when you go back out. You can't magic anything away, but that's okay that you've had a rubbish day. You can say that and we can give some validation. Actually, I have too. And, you know, we're not here as preachers in terms of we say this, you can do this, you can try this. It's very much validation. We felt like that too.
Yeah.
It's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but making that message a little bit stronger, because I almost feel as if that is set in a particular realm. That is kind of only, it's okay not to be okay, but only if you fit in this box.
And it's still pretty on Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. And in terms of that, it's okay not to be okay. It's like, it's okay to feel like I can't actually go to a real petrol station today. I can only use the self-service. And that's okay. Yes. And, you know, and also this thing about being able to stop. We have this saying, and everyone who knows me knows I bang on and on and on about this. What's done is done for today. Like, because we would go on forever. It's 24-hour world. We can do it. We can watch TV forever. We can go on the internet. It never ever
shopping.
Stops. Yeah, shopping. So actually, I can get through my to-do list if I just spend a few more hours here. Well, no, what's done is done. And even if it wasn't as great as you thought it was going to be, what's done is done. Let's start again tomorrow. And that in itself can be powerful for people. But again, it's this competitive nature of everything around us. I think you're kind of battling against it all the time. So,
and there it's that as well. We get to a point where if you stop, you become anxious. It's like, oh, I should be doing this. I should be achieving. I should be achieving stuff. I was like, but literally everything. Yeah. I just don't have the energy. I'm just going to lie on the sofa and watch something really random on the telly. Yeah. But it's but the guilt is there.
Absolutely.
It's like, oh, I should be doing something.
Yeah.
I should be. I could be.
Yeah.
So yes, the power of stopping.
Yeah. And is it stopping really? Because what you're doing is you are relaxing, and that in itself is something beneficial for the body that the body needs. But we see it more as a negative. Oh, I watched the movie all day and I didn't really do that ironing I was meant to do. But actually I nurtured myself. Actually, that's a win.
Yeah, I spent all day yesterday watching Harry Potter with my little boy. So,
that is brilliant.
Good. Yeah.
That is brilliant.
Should have been doing all sorts of other stuff. But,
could have been, not should have been.
Yeah.
But again, that's
you chose.
you chose.
It's a choice, isn't it? But the pressure that we're under. We were talking the other day about December and the dark mornings and the dark nights, and how the world is telling us to close things in and to start taking some time to rest. We should be sleeping for longer, we should be resting more, and yet this time of year, particularly with Christmas looming, everything gets upped. Christmas parties, workloads, shops. The pressure that you're under from Christmas and everything that's looming goes against our innate bodies, telling us it's time to take your attention a little bit inwards, it's time to retreat. And yet we do the opposite.
We are supposed to retreat. We are supposed to rest. It's almost not on anyone's agenda these days, and it's seen as a bit of a negative, or, you know, especially I think when you say you do yoga, oh, so you just sit there for an hour. You just sit and you close your eyes. Well, actually, it's really therapeutic. And I think when people first come through the door, they find that the hardest. The stillness, the quiet, just taking a bit of time out, that's frustrating. You get bored. You think of all the things you could be doing with this time. And people struggle with that, but in the end, that's what they return for. And it's getting your head around that, because again, we're fighting against what society tells us is the right thing to do. And I suppose at Yoga Hens, we kind of contradict what society says a little bit.
We've got a bit of a rebellion going on against society and the world in general. In a positive way, we just want to share our experiences.
But it's nothing new. I mean... No. The ancient yogis knew this years ago. You know,
we've forgotten all about it.
Yeah, it's just gotten lost along the way, lost in translation a little bit.
I do enjoy a positive rebellion. It's like the magic words are like, ooh. Cool. We always sort of finish our podcasts with a question to both of you, I suppose. If you could get in your time machine and go back and have a wee chat with your 18-year-old selves, what advice would you give them?
Do you want to go first?
I'll go first. My advice to my 18-year-old self would be that I'm not responsible for everybody else, and that I've only got control and some power, I guess, over my own actions. That yes, can have a bit of a ripple effect and influence other people, but that I'm not responsible for other people. And I've took that on all of my life, and I'm still working with that. It's not I haven't reached it yet, but
enlightenment.
I'm learning. And I have to keep reminding myself along my journey. But if there was one specific piece of advice to tell my 18-year-old self, that would be the key, that I'm not responsible for the actions of others, and I'm only responsible for my own actions. Stacey.
And I thought about this a lot, because I said to Angela when we had a chat, I said, there's loads of stuff I could tell my 18-year-old self, loads. But I think the biggest thing for me that I've kind of learnt, that I wish I'd learned a lot sooner, was that you don't have to get everything right first time. And there is no right or wrong. You just do what you do with the information you have in the moment, and that leads you to the next thing. Because I think I've spent all of my life thinking I have to be perfect. Perfection. And not because I look at anybody else and think everything has to be perfect. It's very much inward in terms of I could always do better. And looked at failures of, wish I hadn't have done that, or wish I shouldn't have done it that way. I could have done better. I failed. And I truly no longer think like that. I think every failure is just a lesson. It's not, I don't really think in terms of failure. I know it was one of the questions that you said you may ask is kind of what about your failures? What things have you failed in? I don't think I've failed in anything, because I think everything's layered together and led me to where I am now. And I wouldn't be as lucky as I am now if I hadn't have had all that adversity and all of those experiences to shape and teach me the skills that I've got. So I think that's what I would say. I would say, you can't fail, and you don't have to get it right. And all of a sudden, I think I would feel so much better about life.
Huge pressure lifted just in hearing you say those words. It's like, oh yeah, I could use that.
And that is what I say to my son now. I say, you don't have to get it right. Try your best. And if that doesn't work out, we'll go on to the next thing. And that's what I try to instill in him, because I don't want him to go down the route that I went down of thinking I had to do everything so perfect, when what is perfect?
Excellent advice. If that is of interest, if people would like to come and visit the Hideout, be part of the community, what's the best way to find you?
So we can be found under Yoga Hens on Facebook, or we can be contacted via our email address, which is info@yogahens.com. Feel free to get in touch, have a chat.
We don't really have categories, so we do work with businesses, and we also work with the general public. We work with schools, we work with individuals on private sessions, we work with a whole host of people, but we tend not to categorise. We are all humans, so if you are human, you can contact us.
What about the really nice
sorry to all the cats
aliens?
listening.
Nice aliens are welcome too.
Yes, them too. And we are working on animal communications at the moment. We are very fond of our dogs, and they do play a big role in our business too. There's no kind of specific, you don't have to be anyone specific or any background or whatsoever. Just contact us, give it a go is what we like to say, or give us a chance, let us kind of dispel the myths of what you think might be challenging about yoga, and see if it'll help you, see if it's for you.
Yeah, awesome.
Great stuff. Really enjoyed chatting.
Thank you ever so much for
Thank you very much.
inviting
I have a quick question for you guys. How are your legs feeling in easy pose?
Oh, yes.
Oh, I've got terrible circulation generally.
Okay. My left leg went to sleep about 20 minutes ago, but we're back.
Isn't that quite interesting though? And I think that this is quite important, because I noticed how you all went into easy pose as we sat here, and I've moved since.
Yeah.
Me too.
And so has Angela, but you guys have sat in that position
Oh no, I've been moving my legs.
a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think, and that's what we do, isn't it? We conform. And even if your leg's got pins and needles, you still conform. And it's the same as if you are still stressed at work and you've done too much and it's getting too much and there's another meeting layered on, or you've got to go to this event and that event, we still say yes. And I think sometimes we need that realization that we can say no. And that's what we say in our classes, don't we? There's no need to sit cross-legged to be yogi.
Very much so. On people's first visits to us, people sit on the mat and cross their legs and sit up very tall.
That's what we're
And
taught at school though, isn't
Yes.
it?
Oh, yes, conform.
Yes.
Yes.
Sitting in lines, people don't slouch. And you can see people with discomfort on their faces. And as soon as we say, just relax, if you need to move, just move. And you can see people then, the bodies relax. You can see everything about them just then softens. But it's that given permission that you don't have to conform. You don't have to do every single thing you're told. You can just be you. And if you want to move, have a little move.
Listen to your own body, because like we say, as kids, we get told, don't move, be quiet.
Stop fidgeting.
Yeah, and your fidgeting and your pins and needles is your body saying you need to move. Your leg's going to fall off. But we've learned to ignore all of that. And what yoga teaches us basically is to tune back in, have more awareness, listen to the body and act on it. Anyways, I will blab on forever. So I kind of need to wind myself back in.
That's a good point to finish on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, both. Thanks everyone for listening. Check out all the show notes at inspirationnorth.com. Join us again for the next episode, when we'll be chatting to another inspirational person. If you like this, subscribe and tell your friends. If you didn't like this, subscribe anyway and tell everybody.